Hello, everyone. Welcome to This Week in Tyranny. Thank you for joining me. I am your host, Conrad Rogas. Today is Friday. It's December 5th, 2025. It's episode 157, and that means next week it's going to be 3 years of This Week in Tyranny. It's going to be to the day 3 years, 157 episodes. Yeah, it's been a long time that I've been doing this. And it's interesting that I don't do this more often because right now I have no notes, right? So I'm just coming to you off the top. Whatever is in my head is what you're hearing. I haven't, I don't rehearse for these all that much. I put notes together and then I have these ideas, and sometimes I actually work quite a bit, to get some kind of a point across. Sometimes I do one of these what are called freestyle episodes. I'm sure this is going to have some sort of a topic, some sort of a set of concepts that I want to convey, but that's not clear to me right now yet. I just throughout the week have saved a few links, so I've pulled those up. It's really four sources, four articles that we're going to refer to, and we'll just see where it goes. I want to strike this balance between not having this show be everything that I do online, because I also want to provide other forms of content that's just not like a show that gets lost every week. So I want to strike a balance between having time to do other things and still putting high value content out here for you. So this is it's kind of a challenge, right? As I get onto 3 years of doing this, I want to challenge myself as well. So let's just jump right into it. I don't even know what the first story is, right? You're gonna find out with me. This is Fewer People Are Moving, and it may be reshaping America. So this is from November 30th in the business section from Axios. And this is about where people are living. That this is about physical mobility, right? Not so much travel to other countries, which I've talked about before, but it's about just moving. It's about moving the whole house, moving your job, moving your life. It's a social mobility is one of these big time terms when it comes to how we evaluate society, especially in the context of capitalism and the Industrial Revolution. Social mobility is this thing that we, not only Americans, but people in general, we look up to that, we admire that, we hold that as a value. Social mobility, that you don't have to be born into money, be born into a good life or some kind of a job, that you can, just by nature of your skills, of your determination, of your choices, you can move into any of the classes of society. You could be rich, or you could go rags to riches, or the other way around. You could have everything and blow it all. We admire that. We admire meritocracy. It's one of the American principles that are truly are truly valuable and virtuous. Now, this article talks about how physical mobility, not social mobility, is disappearing. But I'm already drawing that connection. I'm making that connection before we even get into the article, that I see these two things being related. I absolutely see a loss of mobility across all scales, and that's absolutely happened with, as far your finance. Social mobility is really about finances. It's about, can you be rich, can you move out of the tax bracket, right? That's what they talk about, social mobility. Yes, it's not really about money, but essentially it's an economic term, right? Social mobility is can you go from working check to check, living check to check, to investing, or to having other people do things for you, right? So this is what that term means. And this is not exactly social mobility, but it is. It's adjacent with that. You need money to be able to move out, and as we're going to read here, it used to be a lot easier. Share who changed residences in 2024. So this is where I live. 10%. Okay, so you see the light greens. Those have the lowest. So when you get maps like this, they always look the same, whether it's red or blue, Democrat, Republican. You're going to see California, New York, a lot of the East Coast, right, the original 13 colonies, and then Illinois, which means Chicago, the three biggest cities, New York, Chicago, and Los Angeles, and they're always group together because they have similar uh, they have similar characteristics. Okay, high population density, which goes together with high taxes, goes together with being very liberal as opposed to conservatives. That goes together with harsh laws, more difficult to own property, more, of course, more of a tax burden. There's more maintenance needed on land. Okay, there's higher taxes. I can't say that enough. Uh, so it's no wonder that you it's not very easy to move, and that's because housing is so expensive. Whereas you see here, Idaho, Nevada, Colorado, Oklahoma, even though Colorado is, Denver, one of the biggest cities, and it's not exactly a red state, but you see in the middle of the country, it's a lot easier to move. And people do move to Colorado, especially. I got members of my family that have done that. So, roughly 1 in 9 people changed residences last year, a record low in data going back to 1948. So it's no wonder. What jumps out to me is that this is right on the heels of the immigration thing. Well, immigration is a different type of mobility. It's not really moving from within your state or to another state. It's like literally your whole country you're moving, but it's still moving. And before that, during COVID, it was, of course, there were travel restrictions. Now, I know that went away after a while, but as this is going to be a theme, actually forming in this episode, because we're gonna. It's not the last time I'll mention the pandemic, but some things don't really go away, and the consequences of a entire societal change or entire national change. When you let that cat out of the bag, there's no putting it back so easily. So there's a variety of factors here. You may notice that I'm not blaming government for anything yet. Of course, the taxes are too high. The taxes should be zero on property, because if it was property, then the taxes should be zero, of course. Yeah. There are so many practical ways to fix like local problems, to have different communities. Each community, if we are going to have government, the more local it is, the better. And to actually be able to have places that essentially have no taxes, and all of the funding for that community's infrastructure is voluntary and local, that could happen. And some places, some states don't have an income tax, but of course um, it goes back around in other ways. And there's I won't claim to be an expert on all of the geographical differences and how it relates with the economy. I just know that I look at society and I can feel how much more difficult it has gotten to live, to find a place, to find apartments, to find housing. Absolutely. Absolutely it has. And there are a whole lot of factors for that, and I don't have to claim to have the answers to everything, but I do know that we've been lied to, and the politicization, the division, and having people vote for a president as opposed to doing anything within their local community, that is a surefire way to get you further into this low mobility. Because let's zoom out here and we go outside of the country and outside of normal politics. Think about what the global governance of the world wants you to do. They want 15-minute cities, right? They want this population to be concentrated. They want more people in California, more people here in Chicago, more people here in these places in New York. They actually want this, and there's a they, right? I don't want to sound conspiratorial. I want to sound professional, because I'm talking about all objective, surface level things really that we're talking about. And there is a tendency of the decision makers and the influencers and thought leaders of the world. They want to get rid of this area. They just do. They want people out of these areas that happen to produce the food, a lot of the industry. That's just the way it goes, right? So, or let's catch up on time and just go straight to the next article, because truth be told, it's not the these are not the most interesting to me. Okay, I want to get into the last one that I have over here. But this is a next one. It's a similar idea. I just picked these out there that were interesting to me, that I scrolled through the news. And this is December 3rd from Pew Research Center. Americans are following the news less closely than they used to. This is no surprise. And, should we really be following the news at all? It's hard to follow the news when the leadership of this country, and I don't mean just Donald Trump, I mean long before, because you could say that George W. Bush was just as much of a clown, and going beyond the presidents, to just lies over and over again in the news, not just the politicians, but the news themselves, the things that they tell us every season, every year. There's no wonder that people don't follow the news. But this is an indication of apathy and a lack of engagement. Because this is another problem, right? And this is a problem, reaction, solution type of problem. So this is intentionally a problem. This is part of the agenda, as I see it. And this is now going beyond surface level a little bit, because I'm talking about even under United Nations Agenda 21. I'm talking about the things that are not really spoken very openly, unless you have something like the Lawrence Dunnigan tape. Now that I've mentioned it, I've got to actually open it up. Okay, Dr. Lawrence Dunnigan recalls 1969 meeting with Dr. What's his name? Dr. Richard Day. That's who it is. New Order of the Barbarians. So here's an interview that was conducted in 1997. The meeting was in 1969. And, you could judge the veracity of this for yourself. But essentially what this is all about is a doctor taking notes at a meeting. I believe it was a pediatrician's meeting, and the guy, this guy, Dr. Richard Day, he was just talking about, okay, we're gonna engineer society here. We got to give people their. Here you see New World Order, the little Wikipedia, YouTube asterisk they have whenever you say something that's against the mainstream view. And yeah, they still say the New World Order is a conspiracy theory. The New World Order is a conspiracy theory, and it's hypothesizing a secretly emerging totalitarian world government. The common theme is a secretive power elite with a globalist agenda is conspiring to eventually rule the world through an authoritarian one world government. Now, I find this very interesting because I believe I just talked about the World Government Summit, but the World Government Summit is not a conspiracy theory. No, it's an annual event since 2013. It brings together leaders in government for a global dialogue with a focus on issues of futurism, technology, and innovation. So, there is a world government summit, to bring in world government. I mean, but then it's a conspiracy theory, somehow, right? Anyway, I point out the ridiculousness of it. I strongly recommend you to hear the Lawrence Dunnigan Richard Day tape, because I do not think he's making it up. Now, granted, he doesn't have a recording. He was writing it on napkins. You can listen to it for yourself. But when I hear the things that he says, that makes me think that this was actually spoken just as he recalls it, because it corroborates other people who have been around similar people, who have kind of blew the whistle on how the leaders of this world, the true leaders of this world, how do they talk, how do they think, how do they see us, how do they see common everyday people in context of their world and what they want to build. Anyway, I keep losing it. Okay, so Americans are following the news less closely than they used to. Before I totally got off track, I believe I was talking about apathy and a lack of engagement, a lack of being on top of things. Hey, every week I don't get lost in the sauce with these articles, but I am paying attention to what's going on in the world. So when you talk to people in the street, and you know how those conversations go, you say a few things, the weather, this and that. Oh man, the prices are high. Oh, what's happening in the world, man? Did you hear about A, B, and C? It always happens, and if you're not involved, if you're not up to date, if you're not at least following the day-to-day just a little bit to be able to say something, those people who are talking shit, talking out of their ass, and they don't know anything, it's like they just speak in headlines. It's like they speak in captions, right? Just like a cliche, like, man, that weather is, I can't think of one off the top of my head. It's like another day, another dollar, something like that. Those people dominate. They end up directing the collective consciousness. I don't even like that term either, but the general worldview, the general thoughts, the immediate overarching thoughts of everybody as they're going about their day. They're thinking about what kind of a world am I living in, what kind of a society I'm living in. If you're not engaged, if you're not following the news to a degree, or at least following, maybe not current events, maybe not the headlines, but following the spirit, the nature, the narrative of what's going on. If you're not involved, then those people are writing the story. Like they say that history is written by the victors. This is what you do if you don't follow the news. But on the other hand, I mean, how could Americans follow the news when they are, their intelligence is insulted at every turn? So here you have this chart. U.S. adults are less likely to follow the news than they were in 2016. And if they expanded this, I think you would see a similar trend. It definitely is slowly falling off. Still too many people follow the news. But don't be fooled by this. It's not that people have gone away from the news and are actually doing their own research, or are not eating up mainstream garbage. They are eating up mainstream garbage, but it's not even done in the form of news, because every app seems to have a news section. Let me put the camera on me, just give it a little bit of variety, right? I believe Instagram has a news section. Even Snapchat has a news section. So you can kind of have a grasp loosely on what's going on, still have the top trends hit you, but you don't even listen to the news anchor. At least the news anchor and the headlines and the reports, at least that has a connection to this old school kind of engagement and involvement in life. Journalism is the word I'm looking for. Actual journalism. And we're really going far from that. Philosophy. Do people even think about philosophy? They don't. It's not really a part of life, but philosophy is very important. Journalism is important, right? Reading is important, like literature. But we live in such a visual heavy information stream that there's very little reading going on there. Most of knowledge is being transmitted visually and auditorially, right? To see and hear, but not to read. So when you're getting this chart, let me switch to it again. When you're getting this across scales, across political parties, this means that the population is not becoming smarter. It's not that they know that the jig is up, that they know that the tables are tilted. I think this is showing you that they're easier to control and they cannot even be bothered with reality because they have their own reality. So you could see it either way. Um, One thing that it was interesting to me when I look at the Republicans, where you see here with this red line, they are generally going down, and they definitely were around the pandemic. And then around 2021, it goes up again. The second, uh, the Joe Biden presidency, going into the second Donald Trump term. Actually, it's gone down right with the second term. But what I'm seeing here with this is that the 2016 is when Donald Trump won the presidency. I believe if you expanded this to go back, you would see it actually go down. I think it increased around that time. A lot of people got brought into the fold when Donald Trump first ran for president because he was saying the kind of things that related to people who were more in touch with reality. They had a chance, right? They were on the fringe of being close to reality, which you get with the conspiratorial uh, worldview of it, like, seeing what the United Nations are doing, seeing what world government is on the horizon, and all these things that are conspiracies. This is much closer to reality than it is to be in the political spectrum. But let me just say that I think this is one of my problems with the freedom movement, and even and the natural law movement especially, is that I think it's these movements, these conspiratorial movements, are detached from reality as well, way more than they should be. I'm really disappointed in our movement, actually. Um, and it feels weird to say that because I'm not one of the more successful ones in there. I'm not one of the stars to be able to say that, right? So a lot of these people I'm talking about have much bigger platforms than I do, but I'm disappointed in them because they are detached from reality in many ways, whether it is this ethnocentrism, this kind of return to classic, almost Christian imperial thinking, um, seeing things in terms of West and East. What other ways are people disconnected from reality? Um, Being real obsessed with crypto and moving out to different countries and fixing the world that way, going off the grid. Yeah. Let me not just take shots at my team, at my people, right? That's not it's not good for anyone. But it's like the Russian doll with the layers of getting in touch with reality, and that involves what is involved in that is working on yourself, dealing with your own problems, and we all must do that, and it's a journey that we continue to take. Right now, through my mind is going the Shadow Work seminar by Mark Passio, which I actually wanted to do a whole show about. I wanted to just review it, but I actually uh, I haven't gotten through listening to it. Shout out to Mark and everybody else who's involved. Let me leave that there and just go straight to the next article, okay? I'm not too happy with the points I'm making here with this, because again, it's like it goes both ways. Yes, it's good that we're not paying attention to the bullshit, but at the same time, I'm seeing that people are like lost at sea with the world. So I wish they would talk about even the stuff that they're talking about on the news, because we do need to talk about what kind of an economic system we want to live in. Hey, what would you do about schools? Hey, so how do you feel about uh, you know about gun laws, right? Because this is going to get us to talk about ethics and morality, which we need to be talking about. But people are not even anywhere close to current events, and the next generation totally does not respect it, because we see that the fake news media, the dinosaur media, right, so called, is not respected at all. So why have we not replaced it? We're not replacing it. So we're not actually winning. It's just we've exposed that the old way was messed up, but the new way is something that is very nebulous, is just day to day content, stimulation, content. Uh, it's it's just instantaneous dopamine hits, and just seeking your own comfort, and fleeting interests, right? Passing interests. No conviction, no long term worldview, no long term planning. This is what I'm seeing. I'm seeing this as a indication of a very negative trend. Now let's go to the next story. Employers have cut 1.1 million jobs this year. Here's what's behind the wave of layoffs. So I've heard a lot of this, that times are tough. Um, things are getting more expensive, which I have seen. People have lost their jobs. I don't know anybody who's lost their jobs, but this is what I hear from people. I know that they actually have, and a lot of this was due to the Department of Government Efficiency changes and budget cuts. And I sympathize with those people, even though a lot of them are government employees. I still empathize with them. I don't see them the same way I see a soldier, right? I don't just say, hey, you work for the government, I don't care about you, right? That, again, there's a nuanced view that I think is good to have when it comes to that. But I have to say, I've been a bit fortunate, because money has not been that bad for me lately. I've been okay. So I haven't felt the financial hardship. I've seen this from afar. See, the SNAP benefits got frozen for a while until they weren't. The government was shut down. It was looking really bad. Now, so this was interesting to me. It's 1.1 million jobs. Who's the one that has the quote? If you kill 1 million, it's a statistic, but one person loses their life, it's a tragedy. This is another problem with the news, right? We hear all these numbers, 1.1 million and 300,000, and it's hard for us to visualize the impact of that, right? But of course, this is a big deal. Employers have cut more than 1.1 million jobs through November, the most since 2020, when companies laid off 2.2 million workers, as the pandemic was slamming the US economy. Let me point out, the pandemic comes up again. The pandemic did not slam the US economy. Global government slammed all the economies around the world. Because if you remember, it wasn't that people were dying and there were not enough people to man the cash registers and to keep things moving. It was the restrictions, it was the limitations, it was government actions, just like it was government actions that are responsible for almost any drought, almost any famine. I shouldn't say drought, I mean a drought of resources, any famine, any of these. The worst of disasters are not actually natural disasters, they're human-caused disasters, and it's always done by government actions. And that's what happened during the pandemic. So that was 2020. This is 2025. So why is it happening? Tech is driving the surge in job cuts, according to them. The technology sector is leading it, laying off 153,000 workers through November, 17% jump, as it leans on AI tools to boost efficiency. So when I've heard this before, I thought it was kind of a red herring. Like, who is AI really going to replace? Because I work in construction, and I'm not even the one swinging the hammer most days. Most days I'm the one managing and directing people and organizing materials and schedules. So I know AI is not going to replace me, because It's just not possible. It's not possible to do that kind of a job with any kind of AI. There's such a human element to it, and there's so much human error involved, and there's just no threat. So I always wonder, like, who is AI gonna replace, really? But I'll take this report at face value and say that has happened. I don't really understand how, uh, but I'll say this: if AI replaces jobs and cripples the economy, that is a tragedy. That is unfortunate for those people. Oh, here is one thing that I've reported on before: is the automation at shipping ports, and then there was the port strike. I remember. I had the guy that was the union leader. I remember talking about him. He was a real asshole. So automation is taking people's jobs, and that is unfortunate for those people. Whether it's more efficient or less efficient, it is a tragedy of sorts. But I can understand that. I feel much differently about government action shutting down businesses, which is what I'm seeing, not just during the pandemic, but always, ever since I really figured out how much of a war there is on businesses and business owners and even wealthy people, because it's not that easy to be wealthy. People look at the athletes and they say, "Oh my God, that guy's so overpaid. He makes $40 million. He makes $10 million a year." And I think about the 5 million a year that the government takes from them in taxes, and I think, what an injustice that is. What a tragedy. And I'm so surprised, actually, that none, I shouldn't say none, that no athlete has come out and really articulately or in a really powerful way and said, the fucking government is robbing me. I worked my ass off to be here, and they're taking millions and millions of dollars for what? What is that funding going towards? Buying another aircraft carrier, dropping another few hundred bombs, or bombing some boats in Venezuela? Or maybe it's because someone who's rich, or someone who has money, they make them feel guilty about having money. Everybody asks for a handout, right? I'm not talking about people who are starving. I'm talking about just regular people. It's like there's such a guilt imposed on somebody who's doing well. I really think that's a big problem in the world. So I have a problem with that. I have a problem with that. I'm not going to say we have to regulate AI and pass another retarded law that makes companies have to hire workers and not allow them to hire machines. Because this is another way I could see it going. I could see, just like the affirmative action hires, right? Just like the quotas and all the artificial interference into the economy, right? Interfering with a business's own practices. It's just like that, and that has happened before, that you have to hire this many women, you have to hire someone from another country. Why? Why is that right? Why is that ethical? Why can a business or a person be as discriminatory as they would like to be? I think that's better for everyone, if everyone could just be honest. If this person doesn't like being around me, tell me to my face, and I'll tell them to my face, and it's a beautiful thing. You do your shit over there, man. I'm gonna do my shit over here. For for lack of a better language, using a bit of crude language this episode. It's just the way my mind works. Anyway, let's go back to this. So this is where I will call out the government. And I will say this is where the big issue is. Yeah, there are some layoffs because of AI and machinery. Okay, big deal. Layoffs from the Trump administration's Department of Government Efficiency were a primary driver of job cuts. Now that I understand, and I'm much more likely to be against those cost-cutting efforts. But again, there's the other side of the coin here as well, which is, why was taxpayer money funding those efforts anyway? Why were those jobs paid by that athlete, by that $10 million a year athlete? Because were they really doing something for them? I really wish the society was a lot more Wild West, and I think people would have a lot more respect for each other. And I suppose this is the theme that I'm seeing in this episode. Americans following the news, Americans not being able to move, people losing their jobs. What's tying all of these loose strings together for me is that it is a great injustice in the world how much we are shackled together, and misery is the prevailing condition because misery is almost selected for. Uniqueness and being exceptional, you are weighed down. You are carried down by all the other people you are shackled to. There is no freedom in the world. There is no mobility in the world. You can't move anywhere because of how much money the government is going to take from you. So, is it any wonder that mentally, especially young people, what they pay attention to, that they're checking out, that they're not paying attention to the news, that they're turning their back onto the world, that they're leaving the world behind? Because the world is demanding from them to be tied down, to be in the shitstorm, to be lost in the sauce. And I don't want to be lost in the sauce together with these people. And since there's so much noise in the world that I miss the value of like space and silence and the dead space in between households, and in between news stations and podcasts and all these units of energy that are transmitting energy. It feels like there's a cloud of transmission, and there's a cloud of stimulation, of information, noise. What about the space for the noise to make sense? It's like the blank space on the paper, so that when you run the pen across the paper, you can put a word together and leave it there. You see an actual meaning to the information, to the stimulation. What I'm looking at here, another news host, another leader, the one is, this guy's like 80 years old, with his orange fake tan, his dyed hair, all these people with their medals and their suits, and people clap for them and they report on them as if any of the stuff that they're saying is actually real. It's a joke. They're living off of us. They're playing out some kind of weird sick theater in front of the world. And people are losing their jobs. People are being locked into a rat race hamster wheel lifestyle. And that is the tyranny. Okay, that is the tyranny going on today. Now, let's go to the finale, the grand finale, last story that we're going to talk about just here. This is worldwide child deaths are projected to increase first time this century, according to a new report by the Gates Foundation. There's a short video, and then we'll go look at the source. So, let me see if I have my video source unmuted. I don't. There we go.
Worldwide child deaths are projected to increase for the first time this century. In a new report by the Gates Foundation, it's estimated nearly 4.8 million children will die before the age of 5 this year. That is 200,000 more preventable deaths than last year. The foundation says a drop in global health funding in high-income countries is to blame. It is urging governments across the world to invest in primary health care and routine immunizations.
Yes, of course, routine immunizations. Nobody's surprised to hear that, right? So, always I have to give the disclaimer, hey, gotta be careful when I talk about immunizations and vaccines, because there are agencies of the world that find themselves to be the fucking arbiters of the reality, and there are certain few things that you can't say and that you really couldn't say. I could say anything I want about Donald Trump, about the U.S. military. I can even call for armed rebellion, call for actual violence publicly. I've done it, and that's okay. I don't get suspended for that at all. But if I claim to be able to heal or treat an illness, that is, my video is gone right away. My channel is gone right away to make the claim to do that. Um, the monopoly on food and water that the Food and Drug Administration has. Literally, they can tell you what you can and cannot eat. Like, I can't sell something out of my house. I can't stand in front of my house and sell you baked cookies because I would need a business license for that. Certain areas of life, they have such a stranglehold. And one of the most infuriating strangleholds to me is the one that they have on health. Because this has to do with the health of children, which is what this report is about, worldwide child deaths. So anytime you talk about babies and their moms and pregnant moms, it's like you think about what that is, what it means to, raise a child together, for a woman to be pregnant, and that family going through that. It is such a time of love and not any kind of scheming, like personal gain, like career advancement. It's a time of like real just life, and it's like the most beautiful things about life and potential and gratitude, right? And connection with the environment. Um, and at this time, the the hospital and doctors, really, we're talking about. How should I say this? The point I'm making is this is the time that the government takes over that experience, forces their way into that experience, and basically they don't say you have to, because you don't have to go to a hospital, you don't have to get any kind of like shots. It's not illegal. It wouldn't be illegal, right, to do anything like that. But it is just the way we do things by default. By default, the state assumes ownership over your child's health. And before we even get into this, that is the part that really pisses me the fuck off. And it's not. The thing that sucks though is, where's the alternative? Where's the voice of the alternative? Like, because I think that it's not as clear. And although people have done a great job about natural birth and homeschooling and homeopathic care and medicine, not a good enough job has been done. Not enough knowledge has been disseminated out there. So what you end up having is, okay, say you're living natural. You don't take your kids to school. You don't put them through the hospital system. You don't do anything like that. And you see in that section of the population, you see way too much straight up abuse and harm being done to children. I mean, that's just the case, right? Not everybody homeschooling their child is doing it for the right reason, and some people are just straight up neglecting their children, and that is just the tip of the iceberg, what is happening. So that pisses me off as well, because I want to do the right thing, but it's not enough just to get the government out of our life. We have to take ownership of our life, and then we have to, with our neighbors, be able to watch over each other. This is the other side of being shackled together, and there's no freedom, there's no space between people. But But at the same time, can you really raise your child in a vacuum? Because a child needs a community. A child needs the stimulation of different faces and of a lot of information, right? You can't just leave them there just with one person and that's all they know, because they won't be able to function in the world. So, once again, you got the other side of this. Uh, Before we even get into what is simple, see, I tend to go into the complex, because the solutions to get us out of the situation that we are in the world, it actually is pretty complex. To live, I think, a good life and to follow the right principles is pretty simple. Those principles are pretty simple. But we are already in the situation that we are in, which makes getting out of it not simple. See, it's pretty simple to live a disciplined life if you never picked up a bad habit or an addiction. But once you've been an addict, once you've had an addiction, then it is pretty difficult to get out of that and then to maintain that kind of a functioning and not step into the same trouble or hole that you stepped into before. Anyway, the Gates Foundation talking about worldwide child deaths. Now, of course, it's no secret. Anyway, this is the website, gatesfoundation.org. This is their goalkeepers report about their goals. Now, it's no wonder that Bill Gates is all about immunizations. Actually, hold on. Let me go back. What was it called? Because I wanted to read the comments before I go into it. And I don't even know how that'll go, because here I go, I found it. Now let me bring it back up. I don't know how it'll go reading comments, because the comments may be saying some things that will get my channel shut down, right? So this is, anyway, what channel is this? KVUE. It's some kind of a local news, I think. First comment from Michael. The healthcare system has been compromised by special interests. Follow the money. A massive audit is needed in order to expose. Okay, I don't exactly disagree. Okay. Why are Gates and Fauci still breathing? Yeah, so, of course, Anthony Fauci was the face of the pandemic. So it's become a very conservative thing, a very pro-Trump thing to be against Fauci, which is interesting, because I don't see the guy being locked up yet. He hasn't been publicly executed. He hasn't been thrown into a truck and deported. I thought this is what we were going to see, man. I thought Hillary was going to go to jail. But it's way beyond the point. But this sentiment, why are they still breathing? I can't disagree with that too much, Reply from Katie Cakes. Katie says, because somehow only people like Kennedy and Kirk are offed. People say they will die for our nation, but won't do prison time for it, I guess. Huh. So, I disagree with this contention that Kennedy and Kirk and Charlie Kirk, that John F. Kennedy and Charlie Kirk were significantly opposing this control system that is implied by why are Gates and Fauci still breathing. Because, of course, Bill Gates is not a government official. He seems to be above government. He has a foundation, right? But to group him together with Gates and Fauci, that indicates that you're implying that they are part of an agenda to control health and control population. Of course, I agree with that worldview, right? I agree with that conspiracy, because it's obvious. And now this comment is saying, the reply is saying that Kennedy and Kirk were going against that structure. And I say they were not, because they were not. They are part of that structure. And there you have, as a president, of course, that should be obvious. The Kennedy family is very deep in this, and so was Charlie Kirk, I think, as well. I think that's clear that he played a very important role in in this long winding road to get the people into one world government, which is what it is. Next comment. During COVID-19, I didn't allow vaccines for myself nor my children. I'm in my 70s. I can't tell you how many vaccinated people died. I also learned that many elderly people refused COVID-19 vaccines and are still here. Now, this is the reason I wanted to read those comments. First of all, my respect to this person. Of course, my respect to everyone who's saying these things. I'm not just talking shit about your comments. But I have a problem with this such one-dimensional views that it's all because of the vaccines, and this is what I see as well. And again, I think this is, I won't say it's out of touch with reality, but it's not the only thing being done. It's not the only thing being done. And when we just talk about the problem with vaccines, it almost politicizes the debate. It almost makes it like binary, because all the pro-vaccine people, they're never going to change their mind on it, because it's so wrapped up with emotions and worldview that they won't change their mind with this. So, we end up just pushing people away by being so anti-vaxxer. But facts are facts. And when you look at this baby right here, it comes down to, you think that healthy young baby needs it to be injected with a needle. You assume that he or she is not going to be able to have a strong enough system, to have a caring enough support system, to have enough nutrition, to have enough natural strength, to have enough resilience, and basically all the intangible and invisible factors that are part of health. You think that they're not going to be able to handle some kind of a virus or hardship or health issue. That is an assumption, and you reach for the needles and you inject that stuff. And I do have a problem with that, right? So that's why I wanted to read those comments, because sometimes it gets on my nerves that it becomes like a catchphrase. Gates and Fauci are trying to vaccinate everybody. It's all because of the shots. Because it's not just that. And this is why I wanted to go through the goalkeeper's report. And I did scroll through this, so I am just a bit familiar. But I already closed the comments, so I won't go back to it. But somebody in the comments did point out, they made this connection. 2025 is the first year of this century where child deaths will increase. But as you scroll down, actually this was in the video as well, they're reporting on under 5 years old. That's what they're defining as a child, right? So they're not saying children who are 8 or who are 9 or who are 11 and under or 2 and under. They made the number 5. So the children who are 5 years old or younger, their death rate is going to increase in 2025, which is unprecedented. I don't know if it's the first time ever or the first time in many years. The first year of this century. So in 25 years. And I thought of this right away when I saw it, and I saw in the comments that somebody else thought of it, which I was really happy to see that. Maybe it's not that amazing. It's that amazing of an insight. But when I saw under 5 years old, I thought, I wonder what happened 5 years ago. And of course, that is 2020. So we're talking about children that were born in 2020 or later. So they were born in 2020 or later, roughly that time, which you think about what happened in 2020. You think about the 9 months it takes for a pregnancy to conclude and to happen, for the birth to happen. And you think about COVID-19 vaccines. And is there anything else I can say about that? Because I do see a connection there, but I don't want to just blame that, because there are these health problems that I think a lot of them lately. I there is a gray area here, so I definitely don't want to talk about health with any kind of an authority, because I have noticed people getting sick. I have noticed the colds being just going through them differently, things that are unusual. People close to me going through things that are definitely unique and harsh. I suppose there's always been cancer, there's always been illnesses, but I wouldn't rule it out that something did occur and it wasn't just because of the shots. That is the point I'm trying to make. Now, when you're seeing these graphs, it's only one point that the childhood deaths are set to rise. By the way, what is the reason that they're giving for why more kids are going to die? According to them, it's because of the global funding decreasing for health. So they're tying this into Department of Government Efficiency, RFK, right? And some of this, really, it's this Trump-like idea that we're going to get rid of all the unnecessary funding and just just direct money to what's necessary, which apparently is the military, right? Classic conservative bullshit, right? Anyway, I can't fully find the quote. I mean, this is a lot of blocks of text, right? But they want to make sure that people are funding the public health institutions, and not just funding them as far as money, but supporting the public health institutions. And this is by Bill Gates. He says, first, we'll need to double down on the most effective interventions, strong primary health systems, and life-saving vaccines. They absolutely are stressing vaccines. And somewhere in this report, they say, hey, vaccines are the reason that kids are so safe, that the reason that children don't die anymore, that is because of vaccines. And I always found it so fucking brazen and really ballsy that they say that, because isn't the scientific thing to not talk like this, to not talk like there's one cause for that this one cause is completely unambiguous, and we know that it's because of that factor, and it's the vaccines that are making kids safer, not the nutrition, not better sanitation, not all of these other things. So social mobility, right? It's like the prudent thing to say, the scientific thing to say is always there are multiple factors at play here. One should not venture to say that it's just because of this that everything else is healed, right? That this is the thing that is the savior, the beacon of health, and everything else should be disregarded. But when it comes to vaccines, they do say that, and that's how you know it's not really a scientific standpoint, or it's a scientific claim. It's a religious claim. Religious, like this is the savior. Vaccines are they are the thing to turn and give our faith over to. So obviously I don't respect that, and I don't assume that funding public health institutions leads to more health. But that's a good transition to, really, I'm going to be wrapping the show up with all these charts, because it's been said that Gates is just out there poisoning the third world, that he's just straight up killing those kids in Africa and depopulating them. And I wouldn't totally rule out that sentiment, definitely, but I don't think that's actually happening. And you see these charts here, how the poverty has decreased over the last 20 years. Okay, the stunting, which is stunted growth due to malnutrition and hunger, is decreasing, right? Their agriculture is actually growing recently. Maternal mortality, so less of the moms are dying, right? And here's the chart relevant to what we just talked about. The children under 5, less of them are dying, except for now there is a bit of a, there's a bit of a jump here, or it's possible that it would jump. We see it with this red dotted line, I believe is the projected or worst case scenario, or that's the one that's projected, is that your under 5 mortality is going to increase. But in general, you see HIV going down, tuberculosis going down, malaria going down. And my point in bringing all of this up is it's not just Bill Gates doing this. There are people working for them. There are people who work for the United Nations, who work as, Doctors Without Borders, and people work for the Red Cross, and they go into these countries and they actually want to help people. There are a lot of people who are actually helping people out there, even though the guy at the top, Bill Gates, he may be a psycho, and I think he's a Satanist. But while he's part of an agenda, and there absolutely is an agenda that at the end of the day is very malicious to these people, boots on the ground, short term, they are helping a lot of these people. But as you see a chart here, I don't think this is your one and only cause, vaccines. I think this is mostly your cause. And if you're paying attention to the screen, this is the chart that says sanitation. Sanitation, population using safely managed sanitation. It goes from somewhere like 35-40% to 60%. And this is really what determines your health. Again, I'm not saying that it's everything, that clean water is everything, but it's the very basic. And ironically, I need a drink right now, so I've only been talking for an hour, and if I talk for another hour and don't get a drink, it's gonna be a dire situation. It's how dependent we are on water as human beings. So it's no wonder, they clean up their water, they give them plumbing and sewage systems. They're going to be healthier. You're going to have fewer kids dying. I mean, this is obvious. But of course, they'll say it's vaccines, and it's not only vaccines that they want to do; it's also family planning. See, this is absolutely a big part of what the work is that is being done out there in Africa. And I'll go back to, I didn't finish my point about the people that work there. There are a lot of people with good intentions that end up working for these organizations. They wouldn't administer death shots to people. They wouldn't. They're actually trying to help them. So there is a level of help being done. So as we're saying, why are Fauci and Gates still breathing? You have people reading this website who want to help people in Africa, and they're going to shut us down. They're going to think that we're nuts. They're going to think that we're cruel, that we're evil, that we're heartless. Because we are not articulating, we are not properly conveying our worldview, and we are not in a nuanced enough way integrating it all into who we are. Because who I am is somebody that wants to help those kids in Africa too. But who is closest to me is the picture of that baby over there, and women and children around me, and I see the attack on them. I saw the attack on me as a kid growing up, and it wasn't so much the health system, although I had my share of shots that I remember, but I remember the school system, and the school system is what was oppressive to me. I remember, it. Yeah, this is what I noticed, and I definitely noticed the lack of mental stimulation, the lack of a real stimulating environment, and then hypocrisy as I grew up. All of these are big problems, and they're not one-dimensional problems. But yeah, almost forgot family planning, right? Percentage of family planning needs met with modern methods. So this is one of these things that Bill Gates, along with all of the improved health outcomes, the Gates Foundation is using this as a bragging point, or something that they're honored to be doing is family planning. Where, just to translate the term family planning for you, now family planning is a very good thing to do, but what this is contraception. So when this line is going up, what that actually means is births are going down. We're talking about abortions, we're talking about birth control being used, and that is closer to um, to the real agenda of Bill Gates long term. But to me, it's not even the main one, because as anticlimactic as it may seem as we close this show, this is the big picture deal. This is the big deal of of what they want to do in the third world. Global progress for inclusive financial systems. They just want to bank these guys, man. They want to put them to work. So they are improving their health outcomes. Yeah, they're giving them some of those shots, but overall they're improving their health outcomes. They're giving them better living situations. That they're letting them have a life. So that they could work for them. So that they could work. So that they could be like me, who doesn't have to worry about the rent this month. I don't have to worry about the lights going out this week. I could buy a katana. Fuck it. $800. I could do that. I'm not saying I would, but I'm saying I could. And but what you end up doing is creating more revenue for the state. And the more that you are tethered to the state and the more money you are making, the more tied you are to them, right? The more you have to lose. And right now I don't have a wife and children, but if I did, I'd have a lot more to lose. I'd definitely be a lot less likely to pick up that katana and potentially start practicing. So anyway, this is the most aggressive chart of all, from 51% to 79%. That's how many adults have a financial account. And I don't know if this is global or this is Africa or what country this is, right? Exploring the data. So they in 2015, 193 world leaders agreed to 17 ambitious sustainable development goals, so it's United Nations, to end poverty, fight inequality, and improve health by 2030. So they're tracking 18 key indicators. I'm sorry, this isn't actually just kids in Africa. I suppose I made an assumption there because it's who they seem to put out there, right? Right, kids in Africa. So I'm sorry that I assumed, but this is actually the whole world. So that makes this even more compelling to me, because you're seeing this across the board. And it's all about that bank account. Not that money is everything, but so to wrap it all up, we see all the tyranny. We see bad people straight up running wild like Anthony Fauci did during the pandemic, and then not being held to any consequences. You hear Bill Gates, who has said, like, what is the thing that the soundbite that is always played, that he said, population control and with the vaccines, of course, or saying something that vaccination is somehow related to lower population. Like that's just what it is. I should find the video. So we see people like that out in the world, and can you really blame people for sounding the alarm and saying, hey, they want to destroy the world, they want to destroy America, it's going to crash, anytime, it's going to go down in 6 months or next year, it's the end times. And then people like that, we seem like the boy that cried wolf, because you get young people and just mainstream individuals who are saying, wait a minute, but I'm seeing all of this stuff happening. I'm seeing the world I'm seeing reality in front of me progressing in some kind of a way that I can, that I can believe. They look at the progress with health systems and with computer systems, right? The progress of technology, and they say, "Hey, you guys are crazy. You guys are out of touch with reality." And this is my whole problem. Sometimes we get painted as the crazy ones, that we're out of touch with reality. Actually, not sometimes. Actually, this is the absolute norm. It is the absolute norm that the people who are aware and are sounding the alarm on impending doom, total impending doom, millions of lives get lost like they did during the Nazi invasion, during the communist occupation. And some people, a lot of people, they warned about that. And everybody else just waved their hand. They said, there's not going to be a war. There's not going to be anything like that. Yeah, he's a little bit crazy, that Hitler guy, but, he's never actually going to do that, what he says. And then he did. So, that is my chaotic bouncing off the walls episode 157. There are going to be no do-overs. There are going to be no cuts made to this episode. And that's the way it is. I'm going to leave it out there, and now it's gone. Now it's gone. The show is done. On to next week. On to next week, and to create more content in a more compelling way. And just as important as the content is the anti-matter, the anti-content, so to speak, right? Which is what you do with the time when you're not presenting, when you're not working. Okay, the time that you have to yourself, the time that you have to just reflect, observe, and to take things in, right? It's kind of turned into a show where I'm talking about surface things, but I'm thinking about like shadow concepts, like occult concepts. You think about the yin and yang, really, the yin and yang, right? You see 99% of white, but it always contains that 1% black, and this just seems to be the way of the world. And to move about in this world and be in touch with reality, we have to never get too far from the middle. We have to stay balanced, but we also can't be afraid to go off into the extremes. So if you got an extremely chaotic show every once in a while, that's just the way it's going to be. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next week on This Week in Tyranny.